A 16-year-old accused of sexually assaulting and then killing his 18-year-old stepsister aboard a Carnival cruise ship is now behind bars, and he will stay there until his trial. In an order filed June 10th, a federal magistrate judge in Miami revoked the teenager's pretrial release and ordered him taken into custody, finding that no set of conditions could be trusted to keep the public safe while he awaits trial in the death of Anna Kepner. The defendant is Timothy Hudson. He is 16 years old, and because he is a minor, he has been identified in many of the federal filings simply as TH. He is charged with first-degree murder and aggravated sexual abuse in the death of Anna Marie Kepner, an 18-year-old from Titusville, Florida, whose body was found stuffed beneath a bed in the cabin she had been sharing with him and her younger brother. He has pleaded not guilty to both charges, and under the law, he remains presumed innocent unless and until a jury says otherwise. The order putting him in jail came from U.S. Magistrate Judge Edwin G. Torres, who sits in the Southern District of Florida. According to the order, which is dated June 10th, Hudson surrendered to the U.S. Marshals Service on Monday after the judge revoked the release that had allowed him to live with a relative for months. Court TV reports he had been instructed to report to the federal courthouse where marshals took him into custody. He will now be held until his case is resolved. That is a significant reversal. For most of this year, Hudson was not in jail at all. He had been living under strict release conditions, including electronic monitoring in the home of his maternal uncle. He had been staying at that relative's house since the cruise ship docked after Anna's body was found. Federal prosecutors had tried to keep him detained earlier when he was first arrested, but were unsuccessful under the juvenile framework that generally favors releasing minors. So for months, he remained free under supervision. Now a judge has decided that arrangement can no longer stand and that he will spend the run-up to trial in a cell. The reason the judge gave is rooted in how this case moved through the court system, and it is worth slowing down on because it explains why a teenager who had been free for months is suddenly behind bars. When the case began, Hudson was charged as a juvenile. Federal law, under the framework governing juvenile detention, generally favors releasing minors while their cases work through the courts. That is why prosecutors' early attempts to keep him locked up did not succeed, and why he was released in February under supervision. Then the case changed character. In April, a federal grand jury indicted Hudson as an adult on the 2 counts of first-degree murder and aggravated sexual abuse. Once he was being prosecuted as an adult rather than as a juvenile, Judge Torres concluded, the legal landscape was no longer the same. As CBS News reported from the order, Torres wrote that the government had established by clear and convincing evidence that no condition or combination of conditions of release would reasonably assure the safety of the community going forward. In his order, the judge laid out exactly why the change of venue mattered. He noted that if Hudson is convicted, he will be a felon, not an adjudicated delinquent, and that he could be sentenced as an adult without the age 21 ceiling that applies in juvenile cases. In the judge's words, the transfer to adult status has real consequences. The exposure is far greater now, and that, the court found, changed the calculation around whether he should remain free. The judge was direct about the danger he believed the charges represented. Quoting from the order, Torres wrote that a now decreed adult defendant charged on probable cause with deliberately taking a human life and sexually assaulting his victim in the course of doing so presents a danger to himself and to others that no curfew, monitor, or custodial placement can be trusted to contain. He went further on the sexual assault allegations specifically. Focusing just on that charge, Torres wrote, "The government's case for a forcible rape is beyond clear and convincing." He said it suggests a level of psychopathy and lack of remorse that by itself raises a serious concern that the defendant could, in the judge's phrasing, snap at any time, despite what he described as the well-meaning and serious efforts of the boy's caretakers to make sure that does not happen. The judge found that the severity of the allegations was so great that even one of the two charges, on its own, would have been enough to justify keeping Hudson in custody. It is important to be precise about what that language is. Those are the findings and words of a federal judge assessing the government's evidence at the detention stage. They are not a verdict. Hudson has not been convicted of anything. The judge himself acknowledged that the teenager remains innocent until proven guilty, but explained that the charged conduct must still be weighed when a court assesses the potential risk to the community. The judge was also careful to credit the people who had been responsible for Hudson during his release. The order acknowledges that the current custodians of the defendant had fully complied with the conditions of the court's original release order and had managed and housed him as well as anyone could expect. Hudson had no prior record, had voluntarily surrendered, and had complied with his release conditions for months, the court noted. But in the end, Torres found that those facts did not outweigh the seriousness of the allegations and the new reality of adult prosecution. Prosecutors say Hudson sexually assaulted his stepsister and then killed her by manual asphyxiation. Investigators say DNA from a rape kit performed on Anna Kepner matched the defendant. The timeline the government has put forward in court documents is specific. According to those filings, as reported by CBS News, Hudson and Kepner were alone in the cabin they shared from about 7:51 in the evening to 11:21 the night she died. Prosecutors point to a piece of technology to mark the moment they believe the crime occurred. Kepner was wearing an Apple Watch that tracked her heart rate, and prosecutors say it stopped working during that window. They believe that is when she was killed. The medical findings underpin the charges. The Miami-Dade County Medical Examiner's Office determined that Kepner had been sexually assaulted and asphyxiated. Her death was formally ruled a homicide by mechanical asphyxiation. According to multiple reports citing sources close to the investigation, she was strangled in what has been described as a bar hold, an arm pressed across the neck, and she had bruising on the side of her throat. A relative told reporters she believed Anna fought back. In a separate filing, prosecutors alleged that after the killing, Hudson stuffed Kepner's body beneath a bed and then moved around the ship. Her body was found there the next day, wrapped in a blanket and covered with life jackets. To understand the case, you have to understand where it happened, because the setting is part of why it took so long to bring charges and why it landed in federal court at all. Anna Kepner was traveling with her family on the Carnival Horizon on a 6-night Caribbean voyage that departed from Miami. On board were her father, Christopher Kepner, her stepmother, and several step-siblings, including the 16-year-old now charged in her death. Anna, her 14-year-old brother, and her stepbrother shared a cabin, while the adults stayed across the hall. The night before her body was found, family members have said, Anna told them at dinner that she was not feeling well and went back to her room early. When she did not appear for breakfast the next morning, the family began searching the ship, a vessel large enough to carry close to 4,000 passengers. A housekeeper found her around 11 that morning when she entered the cabin to clean it. The Miami-Dade County Medical Examiner's Office lists Anna's time of death as 11:17 in the morning on November 7th, 2025. The ship changed course and returned to Port Miami the next day, on November 8th. Because Anna was a U.S. citizen and her death occurred in international waters, the FBI took jurisdiction, and the case is being prosecuted in federal court rather than by state authorities in Florida. Carnival Cruise Line has said it is cooperating with the federal investigation. That maritime jurisdiction is one reason the early months of the case moved slowly and quietly, with few official details released, even to the family, while investigators worked. The path from Anna Kepner's death to a murder charge was neither fast nor straightforward, and the delay became a source of public frustration for her family. In the first weeks after the ship returned to Miami, there was no arrest, no named suspect, and no official cause of death. For more than 2 weeks, authorities had not released a cause and manner of death, and Anna's father said the family had been told little. The FBI, which handles deaths of U.S. citizens in international waters, said it does not comment on the operational details of an ongoing investigation except in rare circumstances. Then the medical findings arrived. Anna's death was formally ruled a homicide by mechanical asphyxiation, according to reporting on a death certificate obtained by ABC News. A relative said she believed Anna had fought for her life. Her aunt, speaking publicly while the family waited for charges, asked why, if the boy was a suspect, he had not been charged, describing the wait as turmoil. The charges came in 2 stages, and the distinction between them is at the heart of why Hudson's USDA status has shifted twice. According to court filings in the family's custody case, the teenager was first charged in connection with Anna's death on February 3, 2026, as a juvenile. He appeared in federal court in Miami on February 6, escorted by U.S. Marshals to a closed-door hearing with a public defender. He was released in February under strict conditions to the custody of a relative. Then, on April 13th, a federal grand jury in the Southern District of Florida indicted him as an adult on the 2 counts he now faces. Some of the most widely reported claims in this case came not from prosecutors, but from people close to Anna, and they should be understood as allegations rather than proven facts. According to Court TV, Anna Kepner's ex-boyfriend has said that her stepbrother tried to climb into her bed. The family has also recounted an episode the ex-boyfriend described to them. an encounter he said he witnessed over a video call, in which Anna had fallen asleep and her stepbrother allegedly came into the room and climbed on top of her. According to court TV, Anna had told her ex-boyfriend she was hesitant to tell her father about an incident because, she said, the suspect had knives. These are second-hand recollections, not evidence that has been tested in court. Anna Kepner was 18 years old, a high school senior and varsity cheerleader at Temple Christian School in Titusville. She was born on June 13, 2007. According to her obituary and to her family, she was bubbly, funny, and outgoing. She loved animals, dolphins and butterflies especially, and she loved music. Her mother described her as a child who was always happy. Anna had hoped to join the US Navy after graduating, and according to one account, eventually wanted to become a K-9 police officer. She was months away from finishing high school. Her family held a celebration of life for her on November 20th. This case did not surface through a police press conference. It first came to public light through a bitter family court dispute. The defendant's parents, Chantel Hudson and Thomas Hudson, are divorced. Chantel had remarried. Her husband is Christopher Kepner, Anna's father. That marriage is what made Anna and the teenage defendant step-siblings. After the cruise, the existence of a criminal investigation became public through filings in a custody battle between Chantel and her ex-husband over their younger children, including a 9-year-old daughter. In those custody filings, both parents indicated that the boy was the subject of a criminal investigation in connection with Anna's death. According to a December court hearing, Chantel's lawyer said she and Christopher Kepner had sent the teenager to live with a relative at an undisclosed location, with the stated intention of removing any risk of danger to the other children in the home. The family court record also contains allegations that go in more than one direction. In one emergency motion, Chantel accused her ex-husband of physical abuse against their two youngest children. Reports also noted the teenager had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and insomnia. These are claims drawn from contested custody litigation, not findings of any court. Anna's father has spoken about the case only carefully. Christopher Kepner previously told reporters that he could not say his stepson was responsible, but that he could not rule it out either. Under Judge Torres's order, Hudson is to be held at the Citrus County Jail in a facility approved to house juvenile inmates. The order also requires that he receive a mental health examination and that he be given access to visitation with his family. In July, according to the order, he is to be transferred to a federal juvenile facility in Miami, where he will be held for the remainder of his case. The Kepner family responded to the detention order with a statement thanking the FBI, the United States Attorney's Office, and the U.S. Marshals Service for their assistance in helping place, in the family's words, the accused murderer of Anna Marie Kepner behind bars until trial. The family said it had been painful to know that he had been free for as long as he was. The two charges Hudson faces are serious federal felonies. First-degree murder in the federal system is the unlawful killing of a human being with premeditation. Aggravated sexual abuse is a federal sex crime charge that in this case, the government has tied directly to the killing, alleging the assault occurred in the course of the same incident. The shift from juvenile to adult prosecution did more than change which courtroom the case sits in. If Hudson is convicted as an adult, he will carry a felony conviction rather than a juvenile adjudication of delinquency. And he could be sentenced as an adult, without the age 21 ceiling that limits how long a juvenile can be held. It bears repeating that an indictment is an accusation, not a finding that the charges are true. Hudson has pleaded not guilty, and the government will have to prove its case to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. Timothy Hudson's trial is currently scheduled to begin in September. He faces charges of first-degree murder and aggravated sexual abuse, and he has pleaded not guilty to both. Because the case is in federal court, and because the defendant was 16 at the time of the alleged crime, the proceedings will continue to involve questions specific to a minor charged as an adult, including how he is housed, and eventually how he could be sentenced if convicted. For now, the central fact has changed. The teenager who spent most of this year living under supervision in a relative's home will spend the months leading up to trial in custody. We'll keep following this one.